Welcome to our book launch of Adult Education and Lifelong Learning in Canada, Advancing a Critical Legacy, 2021, published by Thomson Educational Publishing in Toronto, Canada. I am Susan Brigham, co-editor with my colleagues Robert McGray and Kayla Jubis. We are thrilled to launch this book with some of the authors in a virtual format. 43 authors from across Canada, 33 chapters, 360 pages, 3 years in the making, and one amazing publisher, Thomson. We want to thank the contributors for your original and valuable work that will indeed advance the critical legacy of adult education and lifelong learning in Canada. Thank you to the supportive team at Thomson Publishing, with a special thanks to Keith Thompson. Thank you to the Canadian Association for the Study of Adult Education. All proceeds for the sale of this book will go to the Canadian Association for the Study of Adult Education. So please use this excellent book in your courses or buy one to read for your own pleasure. Remember, an e-book as well as the hard copy book are available for purchase online at the Thomson link. Thank you.
Thank you. Good day to everyone. I'm Leah English. I'm Professor of Adult Education here at St. Francis Xavier University in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. And I'm delighted to read a quote from a chapter in this wonderful book. The chapter is Adult Education for Health, and the author is my colleague Maureen Cody. I've chosen this line: "A concern with health equity has led scholars to examine a critical theory of adult health learning." I'm delighted to see that phrase, that sentence in the book, because I think it calls attention to the strengths of our field. We're able to address issues like health and lack of wellness with a critical lens, that is, drawing attention to issues of power and privilege in learning, and that we're also able to look at the adult population and people in genuine need of assistance in their learning, and we have the tools to help with that learning. So we bring our tools, which are questions, theories, and understandings of the broad nature of health and of learning, which includes more than classrooms and which really includes the participatory nature of community.
Fleming, an arts-informed researcher and doctoral candidate from Mount St. Vincent University. In reading Darlene Clover and Lauren Spring's chapter, I was inspired by their assertion that while museums are complex institutions that carry the baggage of sexism, elitism, racism, and colonialism, pressure today has shaken up the sedimentations of convention and propelled institutions toward a more socially responsive and responsible role. As an adult educator, writer, and queer woman, I also seek to draw attention toward unexplored narratives. If we can split the world wide open by honoring voices that have historically been silenced, perhaps we can reconstruct the world together. It doesn't have to be without humor. My 3-year-old daughter, Matilda, regularly tears and rips her books apart. I think we could all benefit from her disruptive methods, especially when it comes to texts that are exclusionary or normative.
Hi everyone, my name is Jo Liu. It is my honor to read a quote from chapter 29 entitled Work and Learning, Perspectives in Canada, written by Professor Hongxia Shan from UBC. Today, Canadians know more about the forms, means, ends, places, spaces, and general conditions of learning engaged in by different groups of people. This body of knowledge helps us understand the local struggles by disenfranchised groups in the new economy. This knowledge has also been used to design training programs so that individuals may become more employable. The knowledge also enhances the monitoring, management, and control of individuals' performances at work. This quote is an in-depth analysis that comprehensively invites adult learners to revisit their quote-unquote emancipatory potential to learning and the local and translocal ruling relations between work, workers, and learning. It also encourages adult educators to challenge marginalization and segregation in workplace learning, foster social equality and justice, and turn multiple realities of learning into a quote-unquote deliberate pedagogical space.
Hello, my name is Bud Hall, and I live on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen and Sinchothan speaking peoples, on the territory that is colonially named after Queen Victoria, Victoria, on the the southern end of Vancouver Island. That I've chosen to quote is by Cindy Hansen, and it's called Indigenous Adult Education, Decolonizing, Indigenizing, and Building Solidarities. And in this chapter, Cindy talks about three approaches to decolonizing education. She talks about settler approaches, ally approaches, and solidarity activist approaches. And the quote that I've chosen is this: in the case of solidarity activism, for example, decolonizing education takes the form of individual and collective processes that aim to transform political and socioeconomic structures, support multiple epistemic positions, and heal ruptured relations of domination and subordination.
So I was drawn to this chapter entitled The Arts in Adult Education, Spaces of Engagement and Transformation. It was written by Audra Cole, a well-known Canadian adult educator, and her PhD student, Christina Fleming, as a dialogue. Its focus, the role of the arts and creativity in adult learning and education, has long been a passion of mine. And I found the dialogue structure worked well. It's something I've experimented with myself. And the conversation between an academic strongly influenced by art making and an artist now venturing into academic research using artistic inquiry takes the reader on a very personal as well as scholarly journey. So what I've done, and I hope I've honored in some small way Audra and Christina's contributions, is create a kind of found poem, because there was many parts that I wanted to quote from. So all of the text here is not anything that they haven't said. And it follows in a fairly sequential way, although I did move some pieces around a little bit. So it's just very short. And I hope it gives people a flavor of what this chapter is about, and I encourage them to read it. What is arts? What is it about arts-informed research? Participants reflect deeply, research beyond language and rational thought, reach beyond language and rational thought, craft making, cooking, gardening, walking, poetry, literary prose, visual art, performance, music, film, digital media. Invite public engagement and transformation about homelessness, caregiving and Alzheimer's disease, immigration, living with metastatic disease, realities of homophobia and racism. Holistic spaces enable deep reflection, personal understanding, increased capacity for expression. The challenge for researchers: find ways to understand how and what the body knows, advance epistemological equity, engage in more democratic research, creating spaces that invite broad engagement. Our work needs to be more about asking questions than delivering answers, challenging privilege that underpins conventional ways of knowing, opening hearts and minds to see, listen, feel, rethink, and reimagine a more just society. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nancy Tabor from Brock University, and I've chosen to read Patricia Guthrow's chapter today, Feminist Perspectives in Adult Education in Canada. What do the women have to say? I quite admire Patty's work, and I often recommend it to students, and I've had the opportunity to work with her in the past, so I wanted to share a little bit of her work with you today. What she argues in her chapter is the scholarship around feminism is extensive. Existing work is important in highlighting women's contributions to adult education and social life, drawing attention to the needs of women learners, and validating the importance of women's learning experiences. Adult education students should be aware of this material and ideas discussed in it, because an understanding of feminist discourses will deepen their understanding of their own experiences as learners and their practice as educators. She argues that this work may be uncomfortable. However, although there may come a day when feminism is no longer relevant, we are not there yet. So it is an important topic to study. Thank you. I hope this encourages you to read her chapter.
My name is Darlene Clover, and I've chosen to read from The Commons in Adult Education by Jennifer Sumner. She writes that the commons remain central to the material struggles and imaginings of collective well-being now and into the near future. In spite of centuries of enclosures and commodifications, the commons continue to be an enduring way of organizing, and the catalyst for such organizing is known as commoning. Commoning is a form of togetherness that occurs when people organize collaboratively and take responsibility for the use, maintenance, and production of a range of resources. I chose this one because, as Jennifer says, that there are a number of ways of thinking about commoning, and she talks in particular about knowledge and the ways in which knowledge, particularly, I suppose, from the university's perspective, has been enclosed in these enclosures, sometimes even walled in universities. And so it speaks to me of how we can think about, particularly to reimagine the closures.
My name is Cindy Hansen, and I'm a full professor in sociology and social studies at the University of Regina. I've chosen to read a little blurb from the chapter Adult Education and Neoliberalism by Sarah Carpenter. I chose to read from this chapter because of the context of neoliberalism, which is affecting our work in adult education as adult educators and our lives as policies of austerity continue to impact our lives generally, and particularly lives of more marginalized people in our world. I will now read from Sarah Carpenter's chapter. Adult education is not just part of the ideological mechanism to normalize neoliberalism, but it's also an aspect of normalizing capitalism and the attenuating relations of racism, patriarchy, violence, and dispossession that constitute capitalism's modus operandi. It is the complex relationship among neoliberalism, imperialism, and capitalism that established neoliberalism's form of class struggle. It is clear that neoliberalism is an attempt to privatize the accumulation of socially created wealth. However, insomuch as neoliberalism is directly constituted with imperialism to characterize this historical moment of capitalist development, it is no less than a reorganization of class relations on a political, cultural, social, and not just an economic scale. It is also a form of class struggle that necessitates modes of analysis and resistance to normalizing, abstracting, dichotomizing, fetishizing, and conflating the social relations that support neoliberalism as a political strategy for class domination.